It's Wednesday, February 8th at 5:30. I'm going to open up this meeting of the Board of Selectmen. I realize the shades are down over there, but for you who are over here, there's a gorgeous sunset as always. But anyways, just to make a comment. So we're here to discuss a petition warrant article that's been proposed for the purchase of the former Bewley property on Newport Road. And it's been submitted for inclusion on the warrant for the 2023 town meeting. Anyone wish to present or do anything else with it? Question, Joe Cardillo.
I don't know if you got it in PDF form. There were some people asking about the word.
Can you read the article, or can it be posted up on the monitors?
So I can read it? Can it be posted? Okay, so I have the article. It says to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $375,000 for the purpose of purchasing one lot on the former Bewley property, fronting on Newport Road, map 59, lot 10, for the site of a future municipal building with the intent of housing the New London Police Department and/or other municipal needs. Furthermore, to authorize the issuance of $375,000 of bonds or notes in compliance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, New Hampshire RSA 33.1, as amended, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to issue and negotiate such bonds or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon. Petitioned warrant article. And I believe we have all of the necessary votes or signatures, and they have been.
Yep, the town clerk checked the signatures, so it was submitted in a timely manner, and there are at least 25 signatures.
And the signatures were authenticated.
Right.
Okay. Does that suffice, Joe?
Yes, thanks.
Yes, I'm sorry. Could come forward and state your name and where you live.
My name is Elizabeth Stevens, and I live at 131 Hilltop Place.
Thank you.
And I was just curious whether the sellers have agreed to the lower price.
The lower price that which lower price? That it was appraised at? The $150,000? No, they have not.
So you're going ahead to propose it even though it's twice what it was assessed for?
So that's not coming from the Board of Selectmen. That was from an independent group that got 25 signatures, which by law you may do to ask for a warrant to be issued at town meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And we're here to discuss that.
I see.
Thank you
very much.
Janet Haynes, Highland Ridge. This seems like a slam dunk for you guys. The power of democracy will prevail in March, but it's, I believe, your obligation to have this entered into the voting at town meeting. Democracy will prevail, I'm hoping.
I believe it's correct to say, Janet, that no matter what action the Board of Selectmen or the Budget Committee takes, that the article will appear on the warrant.
Then why are we having this meeting?
Because the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee have to express their opinion as part of the warrant process.
I stand corrected, thank you.
But the article will appear because the statute requires it to appear.
Okay, then the purpose of this meeting was not appropriately described on the agenda. It very clearly says that we are going to decide whether it's going to be on or not.
Well, no, actually, Janet, it states that we'll meet to discuss the petitioned warrant article. Goes on to describe it. Then it says the selectmen will discuss whether they will recommend or not recommend the article.
So I must have
Bill's
misunderstood.
comment is is correct,
Okay.
the warrant with the 25 signatures per law would still go on the warrant for the town meeting. Requesting,
I stand corrected. I read it that you had the power to say, no, it would not go on. Thank you. I stand corrected.
okay.
So,
Nice sunset.
well, I guess we each have to express an opinion on this at this point, and I will say that I'm unequivocally in favor of supporting putting it on the warrant article among several reasons. The first of which is, as with the Whipple Hall decision, I think it's important that we let the voters have their say and not try to dissuade them or persuade them in one way or another. Second of all, I think that if we were to reference a market analysis of the value of this land, we would find that it is much closer, if not more, than the $375,000 we were prescribed by the position we had taken, that we were going to get an official certified appraisal. And when that came in at less than $375,000, I don't believe we had any choice but to not have us put it on the warrant. However, I think there's substantial support for the $375,000. And in fact, in May of 2022, Continuum, the current owners of the land, had a market appraisal done, which is different than a real estate appraisal. And if I may read it for the record, please. Because of the location of the property, it may be possible for the owner to seek special exception for the use of the property. The location is prime, holds a higher value, and holds a high value in New London. The highest and best use for this property is for commercial development, which supports the fact that using residential comparables in the appraisal was probably an error by the appraiser. And based on the 3 comparable sold properties and knowledge of the local market by a local real estate professional, I believe the value of this property has exceeded the price for which it was purchased by Continuum. The market value is $600,000. Please note that the value is estimated as is market value. And this was done on May 24th, 2022. So I think there's substantial reason for us to believe that the value is there and that we should not only support the petitioners, but also continue to support the article. I could go into some detail on the appraisal if people would like. It was a difficult appraisal, to say the least, with most unusual comparable properties chosen to justify the appraised value. Finally, I think above all, we want to support everything we can do in continuing this multi-year effort to deal with the long-standing issue of the police station. So I think it behooves us to be supportive on behalf of the police also.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Janet?
I support the petition warrant article for the reasons Bill stated, as well as the fact that when the appraisal was done for $150,000, they were looking at the property as residential, not commercial, and we would be using the property as commercial. I think it's time to move forward on a new site for the police station, and I think this may give us the opportunity to do it. But it is entirely up to the voters of this town to decide whether or not they want to purchase this property.
I do not support this. In good conscience, I can't, on behalf of the taxpayers of this town, recommend that we pay more for a piece of property, regardless of how many appraisals you want to have. The most recent appraisal that we requested on this property clearly states it at $150,000. And to then go back and say, we as a town, well, no, we'll step forward and we'll pay more than the going price of the appraisal of that property. One, I think that sets a very bad precedent in terms of the town operations. But two, on behalf of the taxpayers, I really feel that I cannot support this warrant article. So, Karen, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, Bill, that price you gave for the appraisal, was that, it was my understanding that was for all 3 parcels.
That's correct, Karen. It wasn't an appraisal, it was a market assessment by a real estate professional. It was not by a professional appraiser, but the real estate professional took into account the possible uses of the land, which the appraiser did not do, and took into consideration comparable properties of similar size that had been sold within recent time that were used for multiple purposes. And it's very clear that in the R2 district, a municipal building is a permitted use. So what we have is 2 different approaches to value here. The selectmen towed the line all the way because some of the people in the audience here insisted that we have a certified appraisal, not an assessment. But the $600,000 is for the total property. The appraisal came in at $150,000 for the large parcel that we were seeking to buy, $100,000 for one of the smaller parcels, and $128,000 for the other. So that's $228,000, $328,000, $378,000 was the total of what the appraiser came up with, and the real estate assessment of market value was $600,000. And that $600,000 was a number that was also used at times by the members of the building site committee to talk about the value of the property. So I think we're on firm ground at this point, recognizing the fact that different people will have different views, and you as a real estate professional know that the final answer is that the value of a property is what a seller and a buyer can agree upon. So we certainly have the seller willing to take $375,000, and as Janet just said, we will leave it up to the voters of the town to decide whether the town will pay $375,000. But I'm going to support the voters of the town in that effort.
I'm still confused about the value of the $600,000 one.
The $600,000 was for all 11 acres.
Yes.
$600,000 for all 11 acres.
All right.
We were trying to buy 7.803 acres for 375 of the 600. And I only quote you the other numbers so that you can see, since the 600 is for all 3, what did all 3 add up to? Because we did have the appraisal done for all 3. It's another piece of the whole issue about the appraisal, but it's not our job to sit here and tear apart the appraisal. It's a different set of numbers. They used a different set of factors, 3 different comparable pieces of comparable land. They happen to include the piece of property that you and Peter bought from Mr. Hamill earlier this year as one of the comparables. I hardly think that's a reasonable comparable for this piece of land.
Phyllis, you have your hand up. Could I ask that you use the microphone, please? Thank you.
Excuse me. I would like to get clarification on one point.
Can you just clarify your name for the record?
Phyllis Pietro.
Thank you.
I'd like to get clarification on one point. If a warrant article were approved for $375,000, that doesn't mean the town would have to pay $375,000 for the property if it were possible to get it for a lower amount, correct? It doesn't establish that has to be the price of the property. It could be, obviously, some people think it should be a lot more. I don't think there is any exactly comparable property to judge by, frankly, but if it were, if the price were to be less than $375,000, the town certainly wouldn't spend that amount. Is that correct? The warrant does not require or compel the town to pay that amount if it could possibly be purchased for less, correct?
That's correct. However, bear in mind that to this point, the Board of Selectmen did negotiate with the seller, and he would not settle for a lower price.
Yeah, I realize that, but the seller has made a number of claims about all sorts of other things that have not necessarily proved to be totally based on evidence. So I think just as long as, I think it's important for the town to know, and that the town, at the time of voting on it, that that would be the ceiling of the town commitment. It would not necessarily be the full amount that the town would pay if it were possible, as who knows, it would still be possible to negotiate a lower price. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. Joe?
Joe Cardillo, a question and then a comment for the record. Bill had stated that the selectmen, that people from the floor really wanted an appraisal on this piece of land. I think the record will show, if you want to go back and play what's up in the cloud in YouTube these days, that I was one who said it was probably not even necessary, and yielded to Bill, who insisted that we couldn't go forward without an appraisal. So we did have the appraisal as a result of your efforts, not someone from the floor. My question is, we have an article which will go before the voters, whether you vote 2-1, 3-0, and however the Budget Committee decides to approve this or not. Simple question, how are we standing with the purchase and sales agreement? Do we even have an agreement in effect, executed by two parties, that gives the voters of this town a comfort level that there's a contractual obligation on the part of the seller to sell this land should the funds become available? So I'd like to know the status of our purchase and sales agreement.
No, there is no purchase and sales agreement when the selectmen got the appraisal, because one of the contingencies, as you may recall, when the selectmen decided to enter into it, was that it must appraise for the sale price. So that was a contingency that could not be met once we got the $150,000. The seller has been contacted and is aware of this petition warrant article. He knows that it will be voted on in March. He is still interested in selling it to the town for the $375,000. So if town meeting were to approve this at $375,000, I will call him the next day. If the land has not been sold, because he can sell it to whomever he likes, we would be out of luck. If the town votes $375,000 and it's still available, I believe that he would be more than happy to sell it to the town.
Just as a follow-up, I mean, I think this is, I'm not going to call it a dilemma. What we have here is a handshake agreement with someone who owns a piece of property. Phyllis talks about we don't have to pay $375,000. I mean, correct, but he's not taking anything less than $375,000. And in order to give the voters a comfort level, I would think it would be prudent prior to getting in the town meeting, and I've been pushing this for months and months now, that a purchase and sales agreement needed to be executed. I don't know how you bring a piece of property in front of voters when we don't even contractually have control of it. So it might be in our best interest to give the voters a comfort level that there's some written agreement in effect with this seller before we walk into town meeting.
I mean, I don't see how the town should feel any sort of unease if they vote this in and this seller decides not to sell it to the town for whatever reason. The town keeps its $375,000. So, you know, you don't need an advance purchase and sale agreement if there's an understanding that if the town will agree to give $375,000, or somebody may stand up at town meeting and offer an amendment. So there could be changes that we're not even aware of at this moment. The seller then has the option to either take the town's money, and then we call our attorney, get the deed from the seller and decide whether it has good title. Make an agreement with the seller that says we have to do due diligence and do some environmental studies. If the seller doesn't want to do it, then the town keeps its money. Simple as that.
Perhaps, Joe, you'd be satisfied if Mr. Hogan appeared at the town meeting to speak to his willingness at that moment, because, you know, according, excuse me, what?
He can't hear you.
I said perhaps would satisfy you if Mr. Hogan appeared at town meeting and spoke to the issue himself? Because, may I finish what I'm going to say? He has taken a number of different positions along the way in terms of what he was willing to do, and the last conversation the Selectmen had with him 2 weeks ago now, he indicated he had a buyer for the property at $375,000. So he may well not want the contingency of waiting until March 15th, but I got the impression that he still really would like to sell it to the town. He wants to do good by the town, if you will. He has other interests in the town, and he wants to do what he thinks the town wants. So if the voters were to vote $375,000, I suspect he would take it. But perhaps the best possible answer to your concern at this point would to invite him to be present at the town meeting. There are so many contingencies in this at this point that it's very hard to imagine how you would write a document. And as Kim said, once it failed to appraise at $375,000, the agreement that we were about to sign was not valid.
Just to be clear, I don't need to be satisfied. I don't need Joe Hogan or anyone. I trust he's a man of his word. I just think, as we've attempted for this 5-year effort that we've been talking about, to finally go down a path where we're approaching something with a methodical, thought-out process that kind of got stopped at some point, and it would have been prudent to have this to be put in front of the voters, knowing that there was a comfort level, that the efforts of the people who signed the petition, I'm glad they've got it. It'll go on and democracy will prevail. We're going to get a chance to vote on it. It's all good stuff. But I guess I'm a little bit, I'd have a better comfort level if we went about this with the advice of attorney that says, you know what, Town of New London, you better CYA and make sure there's an agreement here in writing. Because as some people I'm hearing in the background saying, well, there is nothing to stop him. If we had the P&S executed in a timely manner, I would have also suggested the appraisal would have come in correctly. So
That's a fairly far-fetched assumption, I think. But
John?
John Wilson. Two things. One is that it was my understanding that the recently reconstituted or subcommittee for the police station all agreed that if there was a request for this money, the $375,000 for the lot, that it would be expressly said that it's for a police station and not for other things such as municipal buildings and so forth. This doesn't say that. It does add more than just the police station to it. My second comment is, what's going on with the microphones in this room? I mean, is there a solution in sight, or is this?
We're working on it, John. We're like this close. We're getting rechargeable mics.
Oh,
They're on their way. They are on their way. It's a slow boat from China, I think. I don't know, but they're coming.
All right.
They're coming.
John, on your first assumption, you're correct. The selectmen and the people that used to be members of the police subcommittee, site subcommittee, when we were talking about the presentation to make to the general population agreed that it was a police facility. We did not write the warrant article here. If you would like at town meeting, you may propose an amendment to eliminate all the other municipal building language. That's certainly your right to do so. Our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do
I understand that.
to change this language.
It could affect a recommendation. Okay, thank you.
That doesn't, I certainly think we would go back to saying police, if that helped clarify things at town meeting.
Colin, did you have a comment?
Thank you. Colin Beasley, King Hill Road. I agree. It's time to bring it in front of the public, and let's get a final resolution once and for all. If they say yay, then we move on. If they say no, let's put it to bed. 2 questions. How many people signed the petition? I know it was at least 25, but do you have a total number?
Say 32, is that right, Will?
32?
32.
And if you could indulge me, Bill and Janet, I'm really not able to reconcile tonight's comments with the comments of 2 weeks ago regarding the $150,000 appraisal and your pretty vehement discussion with other members of the public that you would not bend and spend $375,000 on that piece of property. So if you could indulge me and help me understand what happened over the 2 weeks that would make you change your mind, I'd appreciate it.
This is a petition warrant article. I've always been in favor of finding a new location for our police department. And if this is something that a number of citizens feel is the way to go, and go ahead and spend $375,000 on this piece of property, which originally I thought was a fair price for it before we got the appraisal. So I'm of 2 minds. I feel that this could move us forward, and if the town votes to say yes to that, then we can go ahead and do some design and site work and all the things that need to be done in order to bring it to the town at the 2024, for the 2024 budget year.
I think I've already said, Colin, that I felt 2 weeks ago that we were bound by our agreement to have the property appraised, and that we would not go forward if it didn't come in at or close to that. It didn't, so I think we had to follow through on the position we had taken. Subsequently, this group of people, 32 people, have come forward, and I suspect there may be more out there. And I agree with Janet. We want to go ahead and try to solve this police issue. We want to give the voters the choice, and all we're doing tonight is saying, yes, we will support the voters having their choice, and that and showing at least that 2 of us will probably vote in favor of it at the time. And I think we have more information at hand. I always thought the 375 was a fair value. I did not want to rely on the real estate agent's opinion, because it wasn't a certified appraisal of the type that Mr. Bowers, for example, thought that we ought to have, and I agreed. Incidentally, I agree with Joe that I agreed on that. But we also do have somebody who's familiar with the market and has made an assessment that a financial institution thought was valid, that the 3 properties together are worth $600,000. So we have some reasonable support for that number, and I don't feel at all chagrined about changing my opinion at this point.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? Yes.
Lieutenant David Keith with the Police Department. Chief Cobb couldn't be here tonight, but on behalf of Chief Cobb, we are in favor of supporting the petition warrant article to purchase this land for a police facility. Members of the Police Department were heavily involved and instrumental in selecting this for a primary site for consideration, and we're in favor of pursuing it with this petition warrant article. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Okay. Does someone want to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Selectmen support the petition article as you read several minutes ago.
Second.
Okay, vote. Bill?
Yes?
Janet?
Yes.
Nancy? No. Okay, there we have it. So I will recess then this Board of Selectmen meeting until after the Budget Committee the budget presentation, so that we can finalize the warrant. I'll make that motion.
Second?
Is there a vote?
Aye.
All right. Okay. So we are recessed until 6:30. Thank you.